Welcome back, everybody, to Two Spot Monkeys Live. And again, if you happen to be watching us on YouTube in the future, welcome to you as well. I'm Jim, as always, and I'm joined by Tom from an undisclosed location. Different backdrop for you there, Tom. I know you're traveling, but how you doing, Tom?
Happy that it's Friday. Happy that we're together. I was able to do. I had the privilege of being asked to present some content at a conference that I was at this week, and in that conference, I spoke a lot about making sure that you give time to your passions, and I specifically named this podcast as being one of them. And I talked about how important it was just to set aside, the hour every week that we have. And I said, I have a great friend in. I'm not going to give away your location. I know we said it here before, but I don't want people tracking you down. I've got a great friend who lives in another state, and we've had a long-standing friendship, and we have a passion for professional wrestling. And it's just great for us to get together and talk about it. And like, I threw out that everyone was like, "Oh, you do a podcast?" And they're like, "What's it on?" And I said, "Professional wrestling." And then it was like the air went out of the room. So I wanted to be like, "Hey, you don't knock professional wrestling. Don't. And then yesterday we were at a table for the lunch, and this was after I presented, and people were talking about how interested they're getting in sports because the NBA trade deadline was yesterday. So there's a lot of talk about NBA and basketball, and then it spiraled into what sports do you like, and what sports would you go to in person versus seeing on TV, and all that stuff. So anyway, you and I both want to go to pro wrestling in person, but for now, we're happy to talk about what we've seen recently on TV and whatnot, and also spend a few minutes this morning in this episode renewing our passion, both for I'll say our friendship and for pro wrestling.
Absolutely, and it's funny that you that's very cool that you talked about this on your in your presentation, and it's funny too because I went to a meeting Tuesday with my boss. And I don't exactly remember even how it came up now, but I think she's allowed me to come in just a little later on Friday morning so that I can do this. And I know I mentioned it to her when I asked, "Hey, would this be cool?" Maybe I didn't mention what the podcast was on at that point, though. It's possible. And somehow it came up, and she's like, what's your podcast about?" And I was like, "Well, it's about pro wrestling." She's like, "You mean like WWE stuff?" And I said, "Absolutely. That's exactly what it is." And she's like, "I never would have guessed." I'm like, "Well, let me tell you how much of a nerd I
am." Watch this.
I've traveled to probably 15 different states. I don't know. At one point, I knew the number. I've been to WrestleMania 4 times. It's a thing. And it used to be a little more of a thing as far as the travel piece goes. Obviously, I haven't done as much of that in the last number of years, even pre-COVID. But yeah, so it was a new moment for her learning something about who I am outside of work. She knew about the trivia thing, but now there's this whole other.
At least she asks, because there's been meetings I've been in before where my boss, I'll say something, and my boss goes, "I had no idea about that with you." And internally, I'm like, "Well, if you bothered to ask questions about me,
right.
If she's not going to listen to this, so I don't really care." So.
Right. The odds of her downloading this, not high.
Yeah.
Or if she did, hi, Tom's boss, and he loves his job.
I do love my job. I'm darn good at what I do, which is why I was asked by a third-party agency to present. So
exactly. Pretty
sorry.
Cool.
We'll step off the ego box this morning.
No problem.
Let's talk about head-to-head so you can bring me back to reality, Jim. Please.
Yeah, let's knock that ego down just a moment. I actually haven't. I was just noticing I haven't started my spreadsheet. I need to do that to keep up on our stats because, well, after Royal Rumble, I was 5-0 and you were 4-1, as I remember. And now after Vengeance Day, shoot, I clicked on the wrong thing. Do you know that? Do you have it right in front of you, Tom?
Yeah. So I don't have how I keep track of it. I have a little moleskin notebook, and I keep a running tally in there. And I eagerly anticipate marking off who wins and who loses as I watch the event. We both went 3-2 last Saturday. So you maintain a 1-match lead. We each got the women's tag title match wrong, which was a little goofy. And did you watch NXT this week then too?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so like clearly, there it seems like they're shifting the former champs in terms of being like not baby faces anymore, which you could argue that maybe they weren't baby faces 100% the way they were acting previously.
They've had moments like this along the way. So
yeah.
I have us at 4-2. Does that, there were 6 matches.
Oh, see, there you go. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just so used to 5. You said 5-0 for Rumble, 4-1 for me. But yes, we were both 4-2. Yes. So so that makes you 9-2 overall, and I'm 8-3.
Yep.
So still with a 1-match lead for you. So no change in the standings. Means I will pick first because of that, even though we were equal at the score for this event. In the next, and you know what? Go back and listen to last week. I don't think I said it, but I was leaning into it pretty heavily. I should have went with my gut. I should have went with my gut about Gallus, because then we'd be tied.
Yep.
So
yeah, you were leaning that way, and then didn't. Yep. And I was very happy with that. The women's tag match. Okay. I guess I don't. I'll let it play out. I don't quite know.
So we were equal score wise last week, so that doesn't bring my ego down. But what does bring my ego down is I'm still chasing you. I'm still behind by 1.
And that you could have been. It wasn't like you were like, no, there's no way Gallus is winning. Like you thought that was definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think those hurt more when you're like, oh, I should have said it. I should have done it. Like, neither of us thought Fallon Henley and Kiana James had any hope.
No.
At least from what I remember the conversation. So, we can both just kind of go, all right, we missed that one. When Wesley and Dijak opened the show, I was pretty sure I was going to be wrong on that one too. They tend not to open with a heel winning, especially a title match like that. I will say, and we can just kind of jump to Vengeance Day reactions, that was match of the night, and I don't think it was close.
No, not even.
Which is a little surprising, because it was not the match I was most looking forward to. That was Apollo Crews and Carmelo Hayes, which I felt like never got going anywhere, but that we can talk about that in a minute maybe. But yeah, Wesley and Dijak. Wesley has not clicked for me totally as a singles act, but boy, he clicked for me on Saturday, Sunday, whenever I saw that. And I didn't end up seeing all of Vengeance Day, but I saw, I think, the majority of what I needed to. I think all I really missed was the women's title match, which the important pieces of that played out on Tuesday anyways. I thought Wesley Dijak was a banger. I mean, and we know Dijak can do this. Like, we've seen it with Keith Lee before. We've seen it in other places before. So I hope they keep letting him have matches, that are really strong, even though, yes, okay, he lost. Seems like, I don't know, D'Angelo's still involved there, and whether D'Angelo's going to go after Wesley or Dijak, or, I'm not maybe totally sold where they're going with that, but I thought Lee and Dijak was a great way to start Vengeance Day.
I agree, and it absolutely was an incredible match. And from there, not that the rest of the card was not good and not enjoyable. It was such a peak that there was nothing that could even match that the rest of the way down. So it was like, okay. And again, I don't want to say it sloped all the way down. I would say that it had ebbs and flows the rest of the card. But yeah, some of the spots, holy smokes, for both guys. And then even at the end when Dijak, I forget if they said he broke his finger or it was dislocated. I don't know that. It just was nasty. Like,
it was nasty.
Yeah, not the same, but it reminded me when Tua got concussed at Cincinnati, and he went into the vasovagal like pose. If I'm using the right medical term, like when you get knocked out and your body like spasms. His finger looked like that. But he was clearly going, I need my finger away from my body because I know something
right.
Not right.
A little help here.
And I'll say too, did you see the vignette that Wesley did, like the social media diary?
Yeah, and had I known they were going to do that on Tuesday, I would have picked Wesley to win the dumb match.
Well, and the thing is that too, so like that's great after the fact because you're fleshing out his character, but like wouldn't that have been cool to like show you that? Like, granted, as the opener, it's hard to have that vignette before and have that package before, but like that would have been really cool to see, like,
And since some of that was filmed kind of like as they were getting ready to leave the hotel room, like I understand, but I agree. If they would have, part of why I thought they were going to take that belt off of Wesley is because I felt like they hadn't fleshed him out as a character. They did more in a 3-minute video on Tuesday or however long that video was than I feel like they've done in a long since he's been a singles.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So Lee and Dijak, tip of the cap. We'll see where they head for Stand and Deliver. Whether Dijak ends up with a match or not, Wesley, you would think obviously will have something to do at Stand and Deliver.
I hope it's not the Battle of the Lees. West versus Dragon. I mean, I can't wait for that match, but
I would say, why do you hope not on that? I would be all for it.
Because Dragon Lee will win the title. Oh. I don't want that to. I don't selfishly in the fantasy wrestling purview. I don't want that to happen.
As the person who owns Dragon Lee, I hope that does happen.
I know. I know. No, there's a lot of matches, and I don't know where Cameron Grimes has been at, and I feel like he should have already been to the main roster by now. But like, if Cameron Grimes, like, there's a number of guys like, and it's weird because like next week's a good example. So your Grayson Waller gets suspended for 1 week because of what happened after his match, and he's back, and now he's gonna. Tyler Bates, the guy stepping up to the plate. Like, why Tyler Bate, man? Like, Tyler Bate is a guy where I feel like his entire career that I have known him in the WWE like world has never met what my expectations are for it. Like Tyler Bate, and it's crazy to say because like that guy's like a 2-time UK champion. I think at one point I felt he was top 5, top 3 wrestler in the world. But just not given the chance to really have more of a platform, which is just crazy to me. But yeah, I mean, the number of guys I'd love to see face off with Wesley is the source of this statement. Cameron Grimes, Dragon Lee, Tyler Bate. There's more, but those 3 are the first that come to mind.
Yeah, and Bate's another one of those guys. Kind of like Wesley, and I think because of the booking mainly, where he's just never fully clicked for me. When he's a little bit Jay Lethal to me, actually. Maybe that's a way to put it. In that, when I hear he's gonna have a match, I'm like, okay, and then he has a match, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. But I think it's been the booking. They haven't made me, even with 2 runs as the NXT UK champ. I mean, the second one was kind of right at the end there, but. They haven't done anything that's made me really invest in Tyler Bate for whatever reason. But he's good. I think Big Strong Boy is a dumb nickname, but especially for him. But I don't know. He seems to like it, so run with it. But and he and Waller, it'll be good. It'll be good on Tuesday because I think Waller is coming along very well. He's got the character piece down, no problem. And I think he's been progressively getting better. He's doing exactly what NXT is designed to do. Like they're developing him, and I think Waller will be a piece for them on the main roster at some point down the road, an important piece. I don't know if he's world champion material or not. We'll see. But do I think he could at minimum be a very useful mid to upper mid card, talent? Absolutely. I think he could. He's got a lot of personality. And he continues to grow in the ring. And he's not, even when he first started, he wasn't bad in the ring. He wasn't one of those folks that you see on NXT where you're like, ooh, they got a lot of development to do before we're ready for them. Right. So, I think Waller's a good example of NXT doing exactly what NXT is there to do. So that being there, the next match was the women's tag title match. We kind of mentioned that. Henley and Kiana James over Carter and Chance to win the belts. I didn't see it coming. Kiana James cheating and Fallon not knowing continues that storyline of the odd couple tag team that WWE just cannot get away from. Even in a new regime, they can't stop themselves. And
Fallon Henley, I'm trying to figure out where, like, what's gonna finally happen to make her take action. Right. So she clearly doesn't like that Kiana was on the phone with someone and seems to be playing with Brooks Jensen, number 1. Then Kiana is the reason they win the titles because she holds down the feet. And she's like, "Oh, I saw it, and I'm not happy." And then Kiana's like, "But we're champions." And like Fallon doesn't like stand steadfast in her anger, like about Kiana cheating. She's like, "I guess you're right. We're champions. Okay, let's go to this party." Granted, the granted is they didn't know they were going to a party. They opened the door and it's a surprise party. So it's a good way to like
with a whole bunch of people no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, clearly her focus shifts, so she can't be in that moment. She's taken aback, right? But all of these things, it's like when and what will be the opportunity when either Fallon Henley goes, okay, I'm just along for this ride and I'm gonna roll with it, or I'm gonna stand up for what I truly believe.
I have a sneaky hunch because we've got 2 months between now and Stand and Deliver, which I have to remind myself. Like, I was trying to watch the show on Tuesday night in ways of thinking of like, oh, there's a match for Stand and Deliver. Oh, there's a match for, and some of those will happen, but we also have 2 months of TV shows between now and then, and who knows, they might even throw a named show on a Tuesday night, here in March too. So I have to remind myself, but I would not be shocked if Kiana and Fallon lose the title sometime between now and Stand and Deliver, and we get Fallon Henley versus Kiana James at Stand and Deliver, even on a pre-show or something, or maybe the Tuesday before or something. I don't know. It seems like that's where this leads eventually. But then again, I was trying to break RK Bro up for like a year, so I'm not good at predicting this. And I wouldn't have predicted Tuesday night. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Next was the 2 out of 3 falls match. Yeah, Hayes Cruz. It just wasn't what I hoped for.
Well, and so yeah, the first fall I think was really, really good. Or really enjoyable. Let me not go so strong as to say really, really good. The first fall they were building to something. The second fall, again, the action wasn't bad, but then like the way that it played out was super flat. And like, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Dabakato was in NXT, and then he went and he was in Underground Fight Club or whatever they called that.
And I don't think he worked much in NXT before he went and did the Raw thing.
Okay.
And that's where they rechristened him Dabakato. He had worked the Greatest Royal Rumble as Babatunde. Okay. And maybe a little bit NXT, but I don't think he was ever featured.
I saw him in Evolve as Babatunde. How crazy is that?
Yep.
Right? Like, and I saw him live, so that's even crazier. And then he becomes Commander Aziz. So what a callback for him to come back as not Commander Aziz. He's back as Babatunde, but he's
Dabakato.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dabakato. He's rekindling his former relationship or the connection with Apollo Crews.
Right. Which at first he helps Cruz and then he choke bombs him to hell. Which, don't get me wrong, unless they were going to turn Cruz heel, Dabakato right now doesn't work as a babyface.
No.
So he had to be heel. And again, there's a match where I was like, okay, so it's Stand and Deliver, it's Apollo and Dabakato, but kind of feel like they're going to get to that before. Not that it couldn't eventually get to Stand and Deliver, but I think we're going to see it before then.
And it's a weird way they did the turn, because to have Apollo Crews lose 2 straight, nothing wrong with that, right? But like he doesn't mean a lot now, and like he doesn't mean and like good thing he has Dabakato to fight, because otherwise I really don't care who else he's going to go after.
And I did think it was interesting. It wasn't like when they interviewed, it's a strong word, Dabakato on Tuesday. He didn't say, Cruz is a loser and I don't associate with losers. He said he knows what he did. So apparently there's going to be a little bit more of a backstory there.
He forced me to be Commander Aziz.
Right. To have a stupid name and wear a, military coat. We'll see. Kato's a big guy. I mean, he didn't do anything Tuesday night that made me go, oh, this is the next star, but he didn't do anything that made me go, oh, he's terrible either. But again, it was Dabakato versus Dante Chen. It was totally there for Kato to be highlighted. I mean, it wasn't meant to really show off. I guess show off, yes, but not like show that he could go in a 15-minute match or anything like that. It was just, here's some power moves, give Chen one hope spot maybe, and then Kato kills him. I mean, and poor Dante Chen. He got all those videos, and then he got hurt or sick or something and was off, and now he's just kind of cannon fodder for guys like Dabakato. So sorry, Chen. Next up was that NXT tag title match. Gallus defeating the New Day, Chase U, and Pretty Deadly, who didn't take the loss well when they showed up Tuesday and hadn't slept and whatever and looked like hell.
Yeah, this was an enjoyable match. I like this. I mean, I thought the action was really solid. I appreciate that Gallus did pin Xavier Woods to win the titles. I always appreciate. I know you had mentioned last week you're like, well, you thought this was the way to get the belts off the New Day without them eating the pinfall. Yep. And you know how I feel about that, right?
I don't like it either. So I agree with you.
Yeah. So that was good and not surprising. Like, you know, the New Day, they're not hurt by this, you know, and they always do what's right for business. So.
And it still was a 4-way, you know, it wasn't even straight up, which I would have loved straight up, you know, beat the New Day. That's a big feather in your cap, but they still pinned, like you said, they still pinned Xavier. New Day is fine.
So Gallus are bad guys, or they trend in that direction, whether maybe they're not outright or not. And then you got Indus Sheer back. You've got, I think, the Creeds that are
good, frankly.
You got the Creeds that are still in the mix. Like, are we gonna have like a Haas battle 4-way at now Stand and Deliver? Or the other thing is, like, I would imagine we'll get the Dusty Rhodes Classic before Stand and Deliver to determine who faces Gallus.
That would be really good, because that tag division in NXT right now is coming together nicely. You got Pretty Deadly in there, you got Chase Hughes as well, you got Brooks and Jensen that you can throw in, and all of the teams that you just mentioned. I mean, that, and I'm probably forgetting a couple along the way there. Malik and Inoue are a fun team. You know, they're not pushed really hard, but they're athletic. They can have really good matches with folks. It could be, yeah. I mean, and Pretty Deadly and Gallus don't seem to be done with each other from the way Tuesday night played out either. So
I was laughing to myself in a way. I didn't watch NXT the week prior when Indus Sheer beat the Creeds, but then I saw the video package on Tuesday, and it made me remember all of the big push that Veer Mahan got and how that like went nowhere. And like I'm pretty sure it went nowhere because of the whole Vince McMahon transition in creative. There's a couple of stories that kind of just dropped. That was one of them that just came, I mean, it made me chuckle out loud when I was like, yeah, that kind of just disappeared into the thin air.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I like Indus Sheer as a tag team. I think a tag team I think Veer is far better in the ring than Sangha. I think Sangha is good for those big power spots, but longer matches, he's still working on that. He's still developing. Veer is a guy that if they want to, I like that they've made them more intelligent and not just angry foreigners screaming into the TV, which was kind of what they were doing for a while when they first came up. But they've shown that they're intelligent guys who happen to also be big powerhouses and want success and gold and all of that. And I think actually Jinder Mahal with them works really well as well. Now, I know Jinder said they weren't going to stop until they were draped in gold. And I like Jinder, but I don't need to see Jinder as the NXT champion. He ain't the guy to beat Braun Breaker. Let's not do that. Indus Sheer winning the tag titles at some point, hey, I'll sign you up. But Veer is a guy that they could actually tell amazing stories with. And I have to wonder if Disney buys WWE, since Disney made the movie about Veer, because he's the subject of $1 Million Arm. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll get back around to that. And Disney buying WWE is certainly a possibility that's out there. I don't know. It's just like there's a guy there who's intelligent, speaks well. Like, you could do stuff with this guy, and I hope they do. I hope this is the start of maybe a rebuild of Veer for down the road.
I just had to laugh when you were making that connection to Disney potentially buying WWE. Two things. Number one, does Space Mountain then have Ric Flair's image all over it? Right? Like, is that, right?
I think Space Mountain just closed.
Well,
wasn't that the one that they just? I think it was.
I don't know. They're going to reopen it. If they buy WWE, they're going to rebrand it and reopen it. The Ric Flair Space Mountain, which is crazy because it was preceded Ric Flair. And then I just thought of like Disney owning WWE and having been to Disney World twice, just seeing how they would potentially incorporate WWE at one of their 5 parks in Florida or elsewhere. Like, just the craziness of what that could be. Like a WWE theme park? Are you kidding me? Am I watching the WWE Scooby Doo crossover right now?
Right. It could be wild. I mean, it really could. It could be wild. Moving on, we had the women's title match, which, like I said, I think is the one thing I didn't see, and I missed the start of the cage match. Roxanne defends over Gigi and JC. Not a big shock to either one of us. I thought Gigi and JC were going to move to the main roster as a tag team. Of course, they don't. They teased that for a quick second on Tuesday night. And then Barbershop Window 2023 came to be, which, I mean, goodness gracious, Shawn Michaels booked himself a little homage there Tuesday night. But JC and Gigi are no more. And did someone forget to gimmick the door Tuesday night, Tom?
I don't know. I just watched that last night. I had seen your comment in our group thread, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, I cringed. And like,
right.
I know that Gigi is the babyface here, and like her legitimately crying like adds a lot to that. But I think she has a good reason to legitimately be crying. Like,
and both door shots, like she got thrown into the door and it didn't bust. And I don't know if it was supposed to then or not. And then JC just, ooh.
Gigi's showing up if she shows up next Tuesday with a boot print on her face.
Right. I mean, kick the out of that girl. I don't know if it was, like I said, I don't know if the door was supposed to break to give somewhere for that momentum to go, but it didn't. And that momentum went straight into her head. And my hope is that Gigi isn't actually hurt in that.
Yes. Yeah.
That any injury they talk about, actually Gigi should not show up next week, frankly. After that kick, they should keep her off at least for a week, maybe 2, maybe more. And then when she, JC's out doing her thing, Gigi comes flying through the crowd and attacks her, and I think she'll get a really big pop. Because I think Gigi is somebody that the crowd can get behind as a babyface. My first thought when it happened was, are they going to put Gigi with Isla Dawn and Alba Fire because she would fit visually with them? But I'm like, no, that's a heel team that's just coming together. So no, I don't think that, because Gigi's, clearly the babyface. If they weren't planning for her to be, she is after that attack.
Yeah.
But clearly they were planning her to be. I don't think, and I made this comment in our friend group, I don't think there's a Janetti here. I think both these girls are going to be fine if they book them well. I mean, it all depends on booking. But I think they're both going to be fine. I think JC Jane has got a lot of presence to her. I think Gigi's a little better in the ring, personally. But Gigi also has a ton of presence to her. Nice angle on Tuesday. I didn't see that necessarily coming. The one thing I will say about both of them, they both have good presence. They're not great on promos yet. They sound like they're reading lines to me. And they are, let's be honest. But they sound like it. Like where Grayson Waller, for instance, to use him as an example, just sounds like he's just talking. Gigi and JC to me are still learning that delivery where it doesn't just sound like you say this and now I say this and now you say that and then I say this.
This is how we verbally volley, but it doesn't sound like we're actually having a conversation.
Right. So, but again, they're in NXT. It's developmental. We can call it the third brand all we want, but it's there to develop talent. And I think both of them are coming along great. And I'm excited to see both of them now in singles. I didn't think the breakup was coming, obviously, this soon. But maybe with Mandy Rose being gone, maybe it will be best for them. Because to be perfectly honest, whether it's NXT or WWE, Triple H, Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, everybody involved in creative in both regimes, nobody's really given a crap about the women's tag titles ever, other than like for about a week when they introduced them. So maybe it will be better for both of them to not be in a tag team anyways moving forward, and both in singles roles. So I'm excited to see where they go. And excited to see where Roxanne goes, teaming with Meiko Satomura next week, which is fun to get Meiko back on the show as well. And then the main event, Braun Breaker defends in the steel cage. You and I both thought this was, pretty much exactly how it would go. I thought the ending was good, where it was kind of Waller wouldn't die. And Braun was like, all right, dude, cool. You don't want to die? I'm going to put you down. So I thought that worked. I guess I didn't understand fully why Waller would be upset. It wasn't like, at least I don't remember, and maybe it happened in a part that I missed, because like I said, I missed some of the beginning, and then I was in and out throughout this match, probably because I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. It wasn't an ooh, I have to see this. It wasn't like he got screwed, and I don't know how he gets screwed in a cage match really anyways. So I guess I didn't quite understand his tirade, quote, air quotes.
Yeah, it's a blurring of the line, because he kind of goes, well, why am I not the guy? Well,
right. I'm not your boy or whatever.
Right. So you're like, well, you just had a competitive wrestling match and you lost. Like, are you trying to say this is not just about what happens in the ring? Like, someone behind the scenes makes a decision about who wins and who loses. Like, I know that they didn't lead into that, but that's we if you're a knowledgeable fan,
there was a wink and a nod to it, at least, though.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So you have to be very mindful of how and when you use that. I think Grayson Waller is the guy that you use that with. I don't know that was the best spot here to do that. But we'll see. Again, like you said, he fights Tyler Bate this coming Tuesday. We'll see what comes out of that and what leads. What is Grayson Waller's path to stand and deliver? I think is a little bit more interesting than what is Braun Breaker's path, because it really seems like it's him versus Carmelo Hayes straight away, which is probably the I don't want to say it's the first, but it gets me very excited right now when I think about that match on paper.
Yeah, and for Carmelo to come on Tuesday and say there's only one match and there's one place, it's clear what he was hinting at, to get to stand and deliver. So and then is that McDonough who interrupted? Yeah, and then later obviously we see McDonough's going to split off with Ilya, which, sign me up, that'll be fun too. Ilya Dragunov on the TV is never a bad thing, so I like that. So I think Vengeance Day was fun. We'll do this again in a couple of months for Stand and Deliver with them. Our next head-to-head will be next week with Elimination Chamber coming. Right now, I think 4 matches, if I remember right, announced with a very strongly hinted at Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley. And I kind of hope they do that here at Elimination Chamber and end that. I don't want them to drag that to Mania, because I still want Brock and Gunther, if that's even a possibility still anymore. I had also read a rumor of Gunther, Drew, and Sheamus in a triple threat for the IC belt. That would also be really good. But there's a part of me that's like, that would be good, but we can get there some other time. I want Brock and Gunther at Mania. And what a better way to make the Intercontinental title feel important than to have Brock Lesnar going for it at WrestleMania. Like that would say something. We talk about belts and championships and how important they feel or don't. Brock Lesnar saying, I don't think Brock Lesnar has ever been the Intercontinental Champion. Him saying, that's a title I haven't won. Let's do this at Mania, big boy, or something. That'd be kind of fun, I think. I know it was the rumor at one point. We'll see whether it comes to be. But Brock and Bobby, if that does happen, I know they have their contract signing, and anytime there's a contract signing, you never know what's going to happen. But I think that could be really fun. So we've talked a lot of WWE lately because of the Rumble and everything else, and there's still a lot to talk about in WWE. I mean, Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman, I haven't watched it all yet, but I've seen enough of the clips that, my goodness.
Dude, the whole you got to watch the whole segment from beginning to end. Just let it play out. So good. So
yeah,
good.
And that's what I've heard, and I'm enjoying a lot of what they're setting up on Raw and on SmackDown. The Bloodline storyline is great.
So remember how I was talking about Cody Rhodes a week ago? This promo immediately changed my perspective and changed how I felt about him. Now, granted, like he could come out next Monday and sway me back the opposite way, which
Sure.
probably means he's really good on the mic, which he is really good on the mic. And he's also a polarizing person and polarizing talent. But I'll say, as of this past Monday, with what he did with Heyman and how Heyman's retorts, it was money.
Yeah, the bits I've seen have been good, and I'm looking forward to probably tomorrow getting a chance to finally watch it in full. I mean, just the line, Cody Rhodes is Dusty's favorite son, but Roman Reigns is the son he wishes he, had. I mean, Sean Ross Sapp was saying this week, like, they need to bill this as Dusty Rhodes' greatest creation in Roman Reigns versus Dusty Rhodes' own son. Like, Dusty could be a focus of this, which it's sad Dusty's not here to be like Dusty jumping in the middle of this promo battle. Oh my goodness, that would have been great. But, unfortunately, we lost Dusty a number of years ago, so he can't be. But, and meanwhile, somewhere Dustin Rhodes is like, hell, I'm right here. I've done pretty well for myself. I'm feuding with Swerve Strickland. Sapp also said Swerve Strickland is going to use that promo and just decimate Dustin Rhodes in a promo at some point here, and have some sort of wink and nod over to that exchange, and Cody being Dusty's favorite. So anyway, speaking of AEW, we haven't talked about them for a little while, and I don't know about you, Tom, but man, they have been clicking lately for me on most things. I'm sure there are some things there's at least one thing that made me roll my eyes. I saw it coming, didn't make a move in our fantasy wrestling league that I should have. But just over the last 5 weeks, let's look at the Bryan Danielson story. We've gotten Bryan Danielson versus Konosuke Takeshita, if I can say it right, Bandito, Brian Cage, Timothy Thatcher, and Roosh. Holy crap. And that hasn't even been the main event of every single match. I don't know if any of them were the main event, actually, of their given week. Maybe one was. I'd have to go back and look at results.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think they maybe might have been the first hour main event, if that's a thing, if we don't want to use that terminology.
The top of the hour kind of thing. Plus, you've got the MJF storyline, and MJF's promo, his origin story promo, if you want to call it that, on Wednesday. Holy crap. Every time I think that guy can't either A, make me think he's a more despicable character, or B, just make me go, well, that was one of the best promos I've ever heard. He does it again. Like, the guy is phenomenal. The trios titles, I don't know. I'm loving AEW right now. I don't know. How are you feeling about them?
Yeah, it's the same. Again, they called it. They said that Tony Khan, of course, he's going to be the biggest fan of his own work and his own promotion, and as he should. But there was credence to his statements. January in the ring on Dynamite alone, and let's be clear, the focus should be on Dynamite. That's the A show. It pretty much was very good to great the entire month for every single thing that they did in the ring, which is awesome. Like, that's high quality 2 hours of pro wrestling every single week. And then it continued. The first Wednesday in February, 2 nights ago, they came back and they did it again. Like if they keep doing this, which I hope they do, from a fan standpoint, from a viewer standpoint, Revolution is going to have a hard bar to meet in terms of in-ring performing.
And the interesting thing is, we're less than a month out from Revolution. Fantasy booking wise now, okay. Tony Khan, please, if you listen to Two Spot Monkeys ever, you have a 60-minute Iron Man match as your main event. Do not book 10 matches for this show. Don't do it.
Right.
Cut it back to 7 or 8. Or there's going to have to be a couple that go 3 minutes. And most of the time on a pay-per-view, I don't want that. Like, if there's a good storyline reason for something to go short, that's fine. But I'd almost rather that happen on Dynamite than something I paid, $50 or whatever it is to watch. please don't book that many matches. I know it's going to go 5 or 6 hours, with the pre-show.
You just saying that out loud made me go, oh my gosh, 6 hours. Please no.
But it's about what it's been running.
I understand. I know.
I think 5. Maybe it's 5. A 4-hour pay-per-view, and then, or it's been a 5-hour pay-per-view, and then the hour. I'd have to go back. I get tired by the end of those shows. We've talked about that before. And you're going to throw a 60-minute Iron Man match at the end of all of that. So you're not even going to give us the breaks that you get in between matches, Now, don't get me wrong. Bryan Danielson, MJF, sign me up. I'm in. I've been in since day one, but you've made it more and more and more. I almost wonder, though, the one thing I wondered was, I like the way it played out, and Danielson and Rush had the best match of that series, which is saying something because none of those were bad matches. Danielson is incapable. He's kind of Ric Flair at this point, right? He's incapable of having a bad match. Cage is the last one, might have made a little bit more sense because it'd be the monster to get through kind of thing. Although I'm glad it was Rush. So sign me up for that. Here's what I want to say about that, though. Tony Khan on Tuesday night, I want to make sure I get this in before our time runs out today. If he books this right, he made 2 stars on Wednesday night. Rush should be, I know I read something this morning that they want him to be their next Mexican star. And I'm like, oh, next. I don't know that you've fully pushed one yet. And then that had a falling out or whatever. And I've been a big fan of Rush since he came into Ring of Honor. I was aware of him before Ring of Honor, but I hadn't seen a lot of Rush. And then I saw him throughout his Ring of Honor run, and I was a big fan. I was really thrilled when he came into AEW. And I got to be honest, I've been really disappointed with their booking of him in AEW because I just don't feel like he's been important. I think some of that has to do with their start-stop booking with Andrade, and then Andrade getting hurt, and whatever's gone on with Andrade. That's another one of those where they brought him in, and then I don't, for whatever reason, that has not worked. And I think Rush got caught up in that a little bit. But if they can focus on Rush a little bit, I think Rush is a star for them, big time. And I think AR Fox was made on Tuesday night if they can follow up on it well. I think Fox was the star of that 6-man tag. And when you have the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega in a match, that's saying something. So I hope that Khan can keep that going, because Rush and AR Fox can be new, fresh faces in your storylines wherever. I'm not saying they've got to be in the world title picture right away. No. Do I think Rush could be a world title contender down the road somewhere? Absolutely. He was a Ring of Honor world champion a couple of times and didn't feel out of place at all in that picture.
And it seemed about a month or so ago, he was calling out Claudio on social media. Maybe not. And maybe that's the path for Supercard of Honor.
I'm very curious to see where Supercard of Honor goes, to pivot over to Ring of Honor there for a second. In that they're apparently going to tape some TV here at the end of the month, I've heard, that will lead into TV or streaming, I guess, their new show on Honor Club that will lead into Supercard, which is good, because right now I feel like there is no path for Supercard because they've stopped featuring Ring of Honor for the most part on AEW TV, which is good if it's going to be its own standalone brand, but then you got to do something with it when you got a pay-per-view coming up. You can't just sell it on the Supercard name anymore. You could do that last year because it was coming back. You got to book some stuff here that makes people interested. Maybe we start that road tonight on Rampage. We're going to hear from Mark Briscoe. No word whether that's, I haven't read the spoiler, so I don't know if it's live in the arena or if it's
I don't know
someone videoed. And I don't know if it will have anything to do wrestling angle wise, or if it's just going to be a chance for Mark Briscoe to say, hey, thank you, and thank you for the chance to have that match with Jay Lethal, and now let's do it for Jay or whatever, kind of thing. It very well could be a promo like that.
How much time do we have left today?
About 15 minutes tops.
Okay. So I wanted to ask your opinion about the Bryan Danielson trajectory. It seemed pretty clear from the first mention of the Iron Man match that's where we were going. But then Danielson had to not lose. But it really wasn't. like it seemed like there was chances he was going to lose, but then like the build. My comparison to this is, so when we think about, remember how Jericho had to go through the trials of Jericho to get to MJF? It's kind of the same thing here, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because and with Jericho, like we knew in a very specific way with MJF being involved that he wasn't kind of announcing who was coming next, and he was kind of trying to one up Jericho. I didn't feel like that was as much here. But then it was really interesting that like on Wednesday they were like, okay, well, Danielson wins this, and he definitely secures the title shot. Like they weren't like going like I didn't feel strongly in the previous 4 matches that they were like, well, he must win here to get to next week to also then continue to win. I don't know. I feel like from a storytelling standpoint, AEW could have done a little bit better there. Not that I thought the end was ever in doubt. But I will say, like, again, that match between Rush and Danielson on Wednesday was crazy. Like, that if you ever thought Danielson was in jeopardy and in a real fight and a real struggle, Wednesday night was the best opportunity for that. So how did that come across? How are you processing it over the last 5 weeks as you watched it play out?
I agree. They did not, they'd make mention of it, but it wasn't as dire straits as I think it could have felt. It didn't feel like, and maybe they did. I'd have to go back and watch, but it didn't feel like anytime there was a pin attempt on Danielson or something like that, like, oh my gosh, Danielson might lose his title shot or, lose the opportunity. It just didn't feel that way. And yet they had just banger after banger after banger, to use Sheamus's and Drew's lines, or the Brawling Brutes lines. I guess it was more there that did the banger thing. Yeah, so I think they could have fleshed that out more. Much like the Trials of Jericho or whatever it was. I'm getting the name wrong there, I think, but the end was never in doubt for me. Like he was gonna. So and I guess it would have been interesting for them maybe to come up with like Danielson does lose a match, and then they still come up with a way, to get him into the Iron Man match. I understand that, but because I think that could have been a moment, like what are we doing here? I didn't think there was any chance that was happening. So yeah, it's been interesting to watch it play out, and yet I've loved it along the way. So it's kind of
another point of entry, and it seems like this has gotten lost, and maybe they recommit to it now, or maybe it's a thing of the past. They're not really emphasizing the rankings. The top 5 rankings.
I think those have gone away.
Yeah, so they were a big deal last year, and they were kind of a staple of what AEW was utilizing in their determining of challengers and whatnot, or giving matches more meaning. I've heard boo about those rankings, right? And so like if you would have said, okay, and I know that one of the things they named on Wednesday was like Rush has never lost a singles match, so that was like a big deal, and he was also undefeated this year. So that made sense for him to be the guy that Danielson was facing. But like if Rush was number 1 and Danielson was 2 entering that match, the logical thing is, oh yeah, 2 beats 1 to get to the challenger spot and lock it in for sure.
And part of the reason that I say I think those rankings are totally gone is otherwise it would have made total sense for Danielson to have to face the top 5 contenders. Like those would have been the 5 guys. And it clearly wasn't that, although Rush could have been number 1 based on his record. Timothy Thatcher wouldn't have been in those top 5, obviously. Yeah. Takeshita wouldn't have been in those top 5 because he hadn't really, his wins. Well, I shouldn't say that. Just because your wins are all on Dark and Elevation doesn't mean you end up at the top, because they did that in the past. Where you're like, how did Top Flight become the number 1 contenders? We haven't seen them on Dynamite in 6 months. It's all on those shows I don't watch. Okay. So they have done that before. But Takeshita lost a number of bigger matches on Dynamite late, along the way. That was kind of his story there for a little bit, was before he got that first win on Dynamite a couple of weeks back here. So he wouldn't have been top 5. You wouldn't have thought. So I'm kind of okay with doing away with the rankings because it got us probably better matches, frankly, and saved some other matches. Because Mox probably would be in the top 5. Well, you don't want to go to Mox Danielson again this soon. Like, you can get there again anytime you need to, but they're BCC. Yeah, that's right. Trying to do the letters in my head. I'm like, did I do that right? Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's been good. I don't. If you asked me to fantasy book Revolution, like, I'd have to really think about who I thought was going to face who along the way at Revolution. So we shall see how it all plays out. One thing I will say, don't care for the Guns as the tag champs, but I guess I'll let it play out. I figured it was going to happen. I really did. I thought Billy Gunn was going to turn. He didn't yet. We'll see. Yeah.
I just want to call this out, and I don't know if I'm getting an old. Sorry to jump in there, and I'm happy to talk about that match and the change. The last rankings that I was able to pull up just right now with a quick search from AEW was from August 31, 2022.
Yeah. So clearly they've quietly done away with it. They've never said anything about it, but which is probably good, because I don't know how do you get rid of it in storyline way without being like, yeah, they never worked. Like, we're not going to care about rankings and wins and losses anymore. Like, you can't say that. So
kind of weird. Yeah. So I missed a lot of the main event on Wednesday, where the tag title switched from the Acclaimed to the Guns. I mean, both teams are homegrown in AEW, and if the Acclaimed, if the match is going to be for them against the Guns at Revolution, and the goal is to get them the titles back, then this makes sense. And that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, right. I just, the Guns haven't done anything for me. They seem to be splitting the firm apart already. I know there was a promo with Stokely. I don't know. That was the one thing they've done where I was like, I kind of thought they were gonna, and I should have picked up Austin or Colton in our fantasy league before that. I don't care to now, and I know somebody else already has put in claims, got one of them, and has put in a claim on the other, and that's fine, because I just don't think it's going to be a long title reign. So it would have been all about picking them up for the title win, because I think there's going to be a fairly quick title loss, is my feeling. Now watch the Guns hold them for 6 months, and I'm totally wrong, but that's what I have to say about that. Well, we're running a little bit up against time here, so let's pivot, Tom, if you don't mind. And we're going to make our Super Bowl 57 pick. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, 1-1. A little bit chalky in the end getting here, or, that we're here. But Chiefs, Eagles, what are we thinking, Tom?
I'm not torn. I want to pick the Chiefs, and I'll be cheering for the Chiefs. I do expect a really good game. I think both teams have a lot of talent, and I think I hope we're gonna get a shootout. I think that would be fun to have kind of a shootout Super Bowl. I heard someone a couple days ago say 38-31 was their final score. So 69 points being scored in the Super Bowl would be pretty awesome. And just to kind of say, like, who can last the longest? That might be a fun Super Bowl and entertaining from a scoring standpoint, right? As opposed to, like, what was it, a couple years ago? Was it the Rams and the Patriots, where it was like 13-7 or 10-6 or some goofy score?
Yeah, something like that.
That was like not a fun Super Bowl. Like, the ads were more exciting than the game. My pick is the Chiefs. I won't give you a final score. I do think that Mahomes is well enough to stay healthy the entire game, barring the Eagles defense is sick. I think they set a record on sacks this past season as a team, so they're going to be coming. But I think if there's ever a guy that's elusive enough to dodge that and make plays, it's Patrick Mahomes. And I think they have enough weapons. And I think their defense is going to be good enough that they won't contain, like, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and a couple other guys, but they'll have just enough to outlast them.
Yeah, I think it could be a high scoring game. I just Googled here really quick. The highest scoring Super Bowl in NFL history was Super Bowl 29 back in 1995. The Niners beat the Chargers 49-26, so 75 total points. Do I think this one's going to hit 75? Maybe not. Although maybe. I wouldn't be totally stunned if this became the highest scoring Super Bowl in history. They're both offenses are absolutely able to do that. I think I've said it here before. Mahomes, you lose Tyreek Hill and you throw for over 5,000 yards and I think it's 40 some or 50 touchdowns. The dude is just on another level. Won his second MVP last night. In 5 years as a starter, has been in 5 AFC championship games. What? Like, that's crazy. 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. Yeah, I think I'm going Chiefs. I think the Eagles are a very good team. I think the Eagles will be back. I think Jalen Hurts is the real deal. Everybody who ragged on him at the beginning of the year, I was a Jalen Hurts believer. I think Jalen Hurts is – I think that my favorite team in Chicago should watch an awful lot of Jalen Hurts tapes over the last couple of years because I think Justin Fields needs to grow in the same ways that Jalen Hurts needed to grow. And now look. Now, they also went out and got him A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. So, the Bears did go out and get Claypool last year, but we don't have that A.J. Brown guy that won for the Bears. So, not that this is about the Bears because they are not playing tomorrow. However, after Sunday, not tomorrow, Sunday, after Sunday, the Bears become the biggest story in football with that number 1 pick for a little while until April. So, or one of the biggest stories, I guess. I'm going Chiefs. If I had to pick a score, I don't think they quite get to 75, but I wouldn't be shocked at I'm going to use the 38 number that you threw out earlier. 38-27, I think would be what I would maybe. I don't know. I'm throwing darts at numbers a little bit. But I think the Chiefs are going to win. That is my pick. I did see the picture that had been going around on social media of the NFL had leaked the script for the Super Bowl because it's all fixed. And it was going to be the Eagles by 3, I think. So I guess we'll see. Okay, go super hypothetical, put your tinfoil hat on for a minute. If the NFL is fixed, the NFL saw that picture and it ain't going to end that way. So they'll alter plans like Triple H apparently has for WrestleMania. So I'm looking forward to it. Super Bowl's always fun. Commercials are fun. It's just a good afternoon of watching some football and knowing, well, I don't know. It's going to be the last football you'll be able to see until the fall, except next weekend, the XFL returns, Tom. So tune in next week for our XFL preview show. No. I don't know. I'll probably try to catch a little bit of the XFL and just see with The Rock, now at the helm, what it looks like.
Yeah, once the NFL season ends this Sunday, other than the NFL draft, my focus is fully shifting, not that it hasn't already been here a lot, to college basketball. March Madness is just around the corner, so that's what I'll be doing. So
and my focus shifts over to baseball because I think my Cubbies are going to be better this year.
They made some good acquisitions. I'm excited to see what happens there with the Cubs.
Yeah, I'm excited about them, and I don't get to see a whole lot of their games anymore, and I'm not home enough to pay for MLB.TV. But I'll catch them when I can on ESPN, MLB Network, and that sort of thing. I've already marked down 2 spring training games that are on MLB. Anyways, this has been a squirrel moment brought to you by 2 Spot Monkeys. We are up against a stop time that I need to head to work. But Tom, it's been a pleasure as always. Anything else you want to add before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, no, just enjoy the Super Bowl. And let's hope that we're both able to come back next week with smiles because the Chiefs won. I know that Annette is either going to listen or is listening, and she's steaming because she wants her Eagles to win. But
yes,
it's all good. That's you got 2 against 1 on that.
It's nothing personal.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and good luck to her Eagles. She's kind of our number 1 fan, throwing in comments and always listening. And I know she's it's exciting when your team gets there, or so I've heard. Tom, what's that like when your team's in the? Never mind.
Wow.
Wow.
I will say this: there's been a lot of conversation. That I went to a conference with a bunch of people who live in Michigan, and again, the idea of sports came up. It was the whole theme of the conference was the work I'm involved in, but like the overarching kind of like elements were like sportish, and because it's Super Bowl week, so there was like a lot of football call outs, and one of the calls to action which you could have chosen to participate in was wearing your favorite team's apparel on day 2. Of course, I show up with an Aiden Hutchinson jersey, and people are like, "Oh, you're a Lions fan?" I'm like, "Yeah, they've turned the corner." They're like, "Really? Have they turned the corner?" I'm like, "Trust me, they've turned the corner." Now, it's not the same old Lions, but we don't need to go down that path today. We're gonna hold that deeper conversation for August, September, when we do NFL picks for next year.
Absolutely. No, and I agree with you. I do think the Lions have turned the corner. So everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy whatever else you might be watching, whether it's wrestling, football, or anything else you're doing. And we'll talk to you next week back here on Two Spot Monkeys Live.